Welcome to the Janelle King Show. I'm Janelle King, and this is Extra 106.3, and this is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned for family gatherings, but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. And today's table topic is a special one for me. I am introducing you to my husband, Kelvin King. Kelvin King is running for Secretary of State here in Georgia, and he recently did an interview, and I really wanted to share it. We typically try not to be a table topic, but this is one that I think is pretty vital. When I joined the state election board, I had no idea the stuff that I would discover. Our elections need a lot of work, and it starts at the top. Our county officials are not funded properly, and they're just not respected. And the election process has a lot of vulnerabilities and irregularities. And now, after running around telling us all that our elections are the most secure, the greatest, and the best ever in the entire world, Brad Raffensperger is now gearing up to run for office again, might I add. But he's also telling us that he plans to send some names to the district attorney offices. And these are individuals who have voted, have double voted or committed some type of violations. Bypassing the state election board, as we've been saying for months and months and months that there are problems, but now all of a sudden he wants to do something about it. And I have to believe that it has a lot to do with the fact that Brad wants to run for office. So now I feel like it's just even more important than ever that we elect a Secretary of State who has the background, who has the skill set, and has the plan to fix our elections. But I didn't want you to take my word for it. I wanted you to hear directly from my husband. I wanted you to hear an interview that he did with someone else so it doesn't feel biased. And so he recently interviewed with Roy Hambrick, who's the host of Small Town Underground podcast, and they had a great discussion. And I thought it would be a great way for you to be introduced to the man behind the plan. So let's jump in.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this special edition of Small Town Underground. Appreciate you being here. And today I have a very special guest who announces candidacy for the Secretary of State of Georgia. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm fairly excited about this. And it's gracious that he's allotted us some time to come on the show. And so today we're going to be talking with Kelvin King. And it's an honor to be with you, Kelvin.
Hey, Roy, thanks for having me, and it's an honor to be here with you and your constituents and listeners. I thank you for throwing a shout out to my wonderful, beautiful wife, Janelle. I just love her to death, and I think together we're a strong team, and we look forward to making some really good things happen, or continuing to make some really good things happen for the state of Georgia.
I absolutely agree. And so starting, we want to kind of introduce you to people who may not know who you are, give them a little background. So why don't you tell the viewers who you are? I know that you ran for Senate. Just give us your background, sir.
Yeah, sure. No problem. I'm Georgia born and raised. I was born in Bibb County back in '74. And the reason why I bring up that date is because it was the year after Roe v. Wade. And that's an important part of my upbringing. My mom was only 15 when she birthed me. So I was an unplanned baby, unplanned pregnancy, and I'm just thankful that the decision was made to obviously keep me. My folks did marry. They tried to do the right thing, and they did marry about 3 years later, or 5 years later. Okay, and it was just a normal marriage at that point. We were in Macon, Georgia, and shortly after, for some economic reasons, they moved up to the Atlanta area, actually Cobb County. Okay. So I attended like third grade through high school in Cobb County, and shortly after we moved to Cobb County, things, the wheels fell off the wagon in my house and my family. My father started doing drugs, beating up on my mother, domestic violence in the home. It was difficult, very difficult. Those were some pretty scary times, right. Challenging times. He ended up leaving. So my mom had 2 kids, and it was tough. No support. He was in prison. And it was just, a challenging situation. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can fast forward it and say that he's since been saved, and he's trying to do the right thing. So
that's wonderful.
That is wonderful. But during this time, it was tough. My grandmother stepped up to the plate, though. She retired early from Robins Air Force Base. She worked as a civilian there. And, she would send us money and food. And I was able to finish high school, graduate with honors. I was in a gifted program. I was a pretty good student. and I was a pretty good athlete too. So I ended up getting an appointment to the Air Force Academy.
Okay.
Thank God, it changed my life, Roy. To be
Wow.
honest with you, we couldn't pay for school. We had to get a scholarship. I had to get a scholarship.
Right. I got you.
So I did get an appointment to the Air Force Academy, and that, again, that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me in terms of my maturity and development, and the opportunities that came after that, and understanding service. I played football there. I was an all-conference football player in college. I had played against some pretty cool players. I had some pretty cool game, bowl game experiences.
Right.
So yeah, it was a great experience. And I graduated in 1996 from the Air Force Academy and went into the real Air Force.
Right.
I was my job was contracting. I was a procurement officer. I was a contracting officer in the Air Force. So that job entails government spending. I was the only, or that role is the only authorized role in the federal government to spend tax dollars. So whenever y'all talk about government spending, I used to do it.
Right. I got you. And I bet you didn't have as much leeway as the government does on yours.
Well, it's funny because a lot of people don't understand. There's a lot of rules and restrictions around procurement and spending tax dollars. I had to go through training for a couple of years, and it's you spend tax dollars wisely, responsibly, reasonably. And if you don't, you go to jail. That's one of the few jobs that if you don't do the job according to the rules, you will go to jail.
Right.
So yeah, it's a pretty high stress position, high stress job. But I only spend so much time on it is because it informs and it has given me a unique advantage over any other candidate for the Secretary of State's office. Right. And I'll tell you about why that's important in a little while. But after I spent my time in the Air Force, I went into corporate America, made my way into corporate America. I did some really good things, some cool things, got a lot of promotions. And I eventually got some accolades in some of my industries. And I thought I was doing really well. I ran our construction division in Georgia for a large company. And I was really on top of it when it comes to my profession. And I thought that I could start my own company.
Right.
So that's what I did. I stepped out about 13 years ago, saved up some money, and started my own company from scratch. I'm a licensed general contractor, so I had to go through the state business formation, the licensing processes, and that sort of thing. And I started from my bedroom. I made enough money to build out my basement, and I worked in my basement for several years, hiring people, and eventually I bought a building over near the Braves Stadium on Powers Ferry, and that's where we currently operate from today. Okay. And today we have 3 locations across the country, one in Kentucky, one in Tennessee, one here. Wow. And I'm just thankful that in America you can put a lot of hard work, and it doesn't matter where you start, but what matters is the level of effort that you put into it, and you can achieve some things. So that's my quick business story.
Hey everyone, I just want to take a quick moment to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for all of your support, and thank you because we have hit our initial goal of 500 subscribers. Woo! And I couldn't be more grateful, and I couldn't have done it without you. So now it's time to set a new goal. My new goal is 1,000 subscribers. I know we can do it. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't just watch, participate, become a part of this unafraid, unapologetic, always seeking the truth community. Your support helps us keep the content coming and growing and rocking and rolling. Thank you so much for being with us, and I appreciate each and every one of you.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you've got a lot of experience, and if you've I know what it's like to try to start a business pretty much from scratch, and a lot of people don't realize what you have to put into it, the blood, sweat, the tears to make it successful, and then you have to worry about it for a long time. So,
yep. I've gone years without taking income, and just living lean. People used to laugh at me about with the truck I drove a 98 4Runner up until about 2018. So
wow. I got you. Well, that's from your humble upbringing. That's what it, that's being a blue collar worker, somebody who's been down in the ditch and had to work. And that, I think that identifies with a lot of people now, especially getting into politics, because we're kind of tired of this kind of status quo establishment stuff. We want real people with real life experiences that are bringing real things to the table, Yes,
sir. Yes, sir. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to run for Secretary of State.
Right.
I actually ran for U.S. Senate a few
Okay.
years ago.
Yes, sir.
That was a tough one because I had never done any politics in my whole life. I'm just a business guy.
Right.
And I'm not just a business guy. I'm a rough construction guy. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I can talk construction,
Right.
uh, but I wasn't, I'm not really the political guy. So in terms of being, charismatic and that sort of thing, I just told it like it is. I'm
Right.
like,
I've been studying you for a long time, and your candidacy, your platform, and that's what the people are starving for. And you see this Democrat machine that is, well, we've seen it come up this year with USAID and Act Blue, all of the money that goes behind these campaigns, not to mention other aspects on election security. But again, it's more than just a name. We need people in there that care about our state and our communities and have
right,
the determination and the will to change what we have going on. So
right. I mean, corruption is real.
yes,
People talk about the swamp, and there is a swamp. I mean, it is real. I can tell you that, and I'm going to get into more of those details a little bit later. But I call myself a conservative Republican anti-swamp because I can be crass at times.
right.
And that's where I come from. And I think people believe that I'm telling them the truth because I don't sugarcoat it and I don't have anything to hide. Before I ran for U.S. Senate, I was at a convention. I was at the Republican convention. I spoke with the old chairperson of our party. His name was John Watson. And he was like, Kelvin, you're a pretty sharp guy, great background. When are you going to throw your hat in the ring?
Mm-hmm.
I said, John, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring when I can stand on my own 2 feet because I don't want to be in anybody's pocket. I don't want to be beholden to the Kemp administration or beholden to the Isaacson administration or whatever name you want to use. I want to be beholden to the people. I want to have my own money. I want to be able to run my own campaign the way I want to run it. It took me a few years because I had a growing company, but I thought that the U.S. Senate race was the race because I didn't see anybody that could beat Raphael Warnock.
I know.
And one thing that I wanted to do and that I did accomplish in that race, and that is I wanted to make sure that I visited every county in the state of Georgia because as a regular citizen, I used to always wonder. I'm like, these politicians blow up the advertising in Metro Atlanta or Savannah or Columbus. They blow up the advertising there. I'm like, but there's a lot of Georgians that live in Rabun and Dade and Walker. And I'm thinking to myself, if I lived there, I would want that candidate to come to my community to see how I live so they can speak intelligently and make good decisions about me and my health and my environment.
That's right.
So that's what I did. We did a crazy thing, I think, but it was beneficial. We campaigned in every county in the state of Georgia in 30 days, meaning it was about 6 stops a day, And we didn't just drive through. We stopped at restaurants and feed stores and hardware stores, furniture stores.
Wow.
And we engaged with the community. And we answered questions and we heard their concerns. And I took a lot from it, but the 3 main things that I always talk about that I took from it kind of surprised me because it wasn't a Republican thing that I took from it, and it wasn't a Democrat thing. It was just a Georgia people thing. And what I took from it is that people wanted to have a safe environment to live in. People wanted to educate their kids the way they want their kids to be educated, and people wanted to be able to provide a living for their family.
That's right.
Like, I'm thinking, dude, that's a message that everybody can get behind that message. So
that's right.
So that's what I learned, and that's what I've stuck with, and I feel very strongly about being able to deliver that message in a convincing fashion. And we continue to do that. And then, my wife would say, Kelvin, what's next for you? And I was like, I don't know, Janelle. And she calls it my mountaintop moment. My wife was appointed to the state elections board last year by our House Speaker. His name is Speaker Burns. And we don't have a relationship with him. Like, we met him twice.
Yeah, I got you.
And we were trying to figure out, why would you appoint Janelle to this board? Because it didn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
But it does make a lot of sense now. Because what God did was show himself through Janelle. Janelle is a very strong speaker, very confident speaker, and very common sense speaker.
Yes.
And she was able to see things, and she and I had conversations night in and night out about what the heck is going on with our elections in Georgia.
Exactly.
And it didn't make any sense. And that made it very clear to me, Roy, that the Secretary of State's office is an office that needs help. It needs to be turned around. It needs new leadership. And that's why I decided to run for our Secretary of State.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. So I'm a big paper ballots guy, and I used to not be. You know, I knew that we've always had problems with our elections, but, you know, I've listened to the arguments, and I think that this is the way to go. However, our current Secretary of State in his office has been completely ill complicit in even hearing out a lot of the will of the people. We've seen court cases that were highly questionable in this state. What on earth is going on, in your opinion, with the Secretary of State's office and election security?
I think it's that whole idea of the swamp. I think that we have folks in power who wants to retain that power. I think that they may be misusing the power. I can't verify that yet, but there's certain things that I look that I have been able to verify, and that is there is incompetency in that seat. And there's also a lack of service in that seat and misinformation in that seat. So those are three things that I can verify. And if you're incompetent, have lack of service, and you're not being straight with the people, you don't deserve to have that kind of power.
That's right.
And let me explain to you what I've learned since I've been running for office, or since I even decided to run for office.
Okay.
What I've learned is that paper ballots is a requirement of the current Dominion contract. I don't think people know that.
No, there's a lot of people that do, and it's even written in the Georgia Election Code. But go ahead.
It's in the contract. I got a chance to get the contract recently from one of my contacts. I got a copy of that Dominion contract, and just in the first paragraph of the scope of work, it states that paper is a requirement for verification. So one thing that's part of my campaign is I talk about we've got to have hand-marked paper ballots now.
Yes, I agree.
We've got to have that for auditability purposes. I'm not anti-technology, kind of like how you said. Like exactly. I was wondering about the whole paper thing a few years ago. I wasn't anti-paper. I just wasn't real sure.
Exactly.
Now I'm absolutely 100% sure, obviously because of the fallout from 2020.
Right.
But, you know, when I said I will come back to this later, the Dominion contract comes to term in 2029. That is during the term of the next Secretary of State. We need a Secretary of State who understands government contracting. Right. Who understands how either to get out of this contract without penalty or to re-procure a new contract and enforce the requirements in that contract. Because what's weird is that this particular current contract, it states, like I said earlier, that paper is a requirement for verification. Right. And what we don't have is proof on some of our election outcomes. Sure. We don't have the ballot images, but that's not what the contract says. It doesn't say ballot images. The contract says paper.
Okay, so it seems like that this Dominion contract, the way that we have it here in Georgia, so I look around at all the states around us, right? They're able to get rid of Dominion. We've got several states that have already implemented a paper ballot system. And it seems like that no matter what happens in Georgia, no matter what kind of evidence comes out, what kind of executive orders, our Secretary of State continues to just ignore these things and placate on the news media that we have the safest and most secure election systems in the United States. Our legislature, we passed it to get rid of the QR codes. We still have the QR codes. I mean, and it just seems like that our current Secretary of State, it just ignores every bit of this.
Yeah. One thing that I've been saying is that you've got to have the will to do right. Just because something is passed or a directive is given, you can probably finagle your way into delaying or avoiding in order to not, be held accountable. The current Secretary of State doesn't have the will. We need to get rid of him. And the other people that's running for in this race, they don't have the will either.
So let's talk about that too. So right now, the first person to come out was Tim Fleming, And then recently we have Gabe Sterling, who already works at the Secretary of State's office and has left his post, and now he's going to run for this position. What are your thoughts?
Well, Mr. Sterling, he's also the guy that was the independent contractor that implemented the Dominion system, the migration into the system. And then he left. So he worked for the Secretary of State's office, left to integrate this system, and then came back to the Secretary of State's office. We don't need that type of character in our seat, in this seat at all.
It's like they're not even taking it seriously, you know.
And he's arrogant. You know, just that, you know, what, a month ago he was speaking and he said that he looks at voter suppression and you know, the election integrity of people, two different sides of the same coin. And he called them the 10% that are dumbasses in our population. And no, like,
I don't know.
Say that.
I don't know what kind of frame of mind you have to be in to say something like that, to have the job record of not caring or listening to anybody, but then you're going to turn around and run for this position and expect to be taken seriously.
No. That means the people need to stand up and make sure that his candidacy is not addressed, not supported, and that we make sure he does not get into this office. And I'll work to make sure that happens too. And the other candidate is a bit confusing to me because he's backed by Kemp, and he's chairing. I think he's the chair, at least in operations he's the chair, but on paper another gentleman was supposed to be the chair of this Blue Ribbon Committee. And the Blue Ribbon Committee is supposed to be going around the state to determine what election issues needs to be addressed by legislation. When I'm thinking, didn't we just have some legislation last year that addressed the issues from the people? And secondly, why would a gentleman who's running for Secretary of State be on a commission that's paid for by tax dollars to give guidance and advice on this seat, basically bringing more power to a seat that you're running for on taxpayer dollars? Like that, that makes no sense to me. Neither one of the candidates are strong supporters of keeping the state election board separate from the Secretary of State's office. What we need to do is we need to empower the state elections board to be a checks and balances over the Secretary of State, because they have a primary responsibility. That's the number one primary freedom right, and that's the right to vote.
Wow. Thank you for pointing this stuff out. So I consider myself a political peasant. I'm a nobody down here who's paying attention. I don't have any intentions on running for office. What I'm looking for is common sense, logic, reason. You pointed it out. I went to the second Blue Ribbon Election Integrity Summit, whatever you want to call it. It's almost it's I don't know use the word appalling, but rather insulting that they had this election Blue Ribbon Summit, because there's so many. We have one of the biggest grassroots election integrity movements that I can see, at least this side of the Mississippi. And we've been advocating, going down to the Capitol, how these people could just pretend like none of that's going on, or that the information is not out there, and act like this. And at the same time, you're talking about somebody who's already been in office, like you pointed out. They've already had legislation. Our last session was shut down on some election legislation, right? That was one of the key last bills that pretty much got shut down.
Right.
And we're it's almost like we're in this make-believe world, like, well, we just don't know what we need to do. You know,
it's very strange, Roy. Isn't it strange?
But the people, we can see this, Kelvin. Like, we can see this, and I'm like, guys, I don't know what you're doing here, but we can see this for what it is.
Right. We had legislation that would have helped. So why didn't Mr. Fleming get that legislation passed? It passed the Senate.
Well, same with the QR code. If you pass the bill for the QR code, but then you're not even allotting any money to these local election boards. Well, and then basically what I got from it was, hey guys, we know this is law, but we're not going to get rid of the QR codes. I mean, they could prove me wrong, but that's the message I took away from.
I think they're going to wait until, they're already waiting until they said, well, it's too late. We can't do it in time for this election. Like, to me, that is a slap in the face of the voters of Georgia and everyone attached to this legislation should be held accountable to it. I
They
mean,
should.
I'm not just talking about the two other people in my race.
Right.
Of course, they need to be held accountable, and we need to get them out of here. I'm talking about the legislators who didn't have the guts, the courage to stand up and say, no, we're going to implement this now. Secretary of State, this is law.
Right.
You need to do it or else.
Again.
It's disappointing.
It is.
Whenever I give my campaign speeches, what I talk about is that we need secure elections. We need transparent elections. We need integrity in this office, but more than anything, we need leadership.
Yes.
And leadership with some character, leadership with some courage. And we don't have that right now, because with good leadership, the organization, the agency, the Secretary of State's office that's responsible for our elections, responsible for our business licensing and formations, that's responsible for our securities oversight. Mm-hmm. That office would be well run, meaning websites will be up to date, information will be readily available to the people, that the state election office, the county election offices across the state, right, that they will have guidance and they will have instruction, they will have processes, they will have support in order to fulfill their mission. Mm-hmm. That's what good leadership looks like as a Secretary of State. And we don't have any of that across the board. It's troubling.
No, and there's one other thing, too, that I took away personally from the Blue Ribbon. They talked to several county election board supervisors, and I thought that was great. To listen to them on mm-hmm. each one of their counties, talk about their budget, the things that they do, the ideas I thought this great information to know. Mm-hmm. But one thing they all said was they do things differently. Every county does things differently, and to me, that kind of shoots a red flag, because you have you have the election code written into Georgia law. You have, the state dictates how to do it. Why on earth would we not have an election process that's ran the same in every county, all 159 counties? It's very easy to do, because you go back and you watch some of those videos, and they're all talking about how they do things differently. And I'm just like, right, wait a minute, this is an election we're talking about. We should be pretty standardized at this point on how we're doing things,
Yeah, uniformity is going to be the solution.
Yes.
In order to reinstill confidence in our elections.
I agree.
And that is something that I know the state election board is trying to conduct or fulfill with some of the rules that they're passing out. And they're getting pushback from our AG's office, and they're getting pushback from our Secretary of State's office. And it's a shame.
From the Georgia leadership. Same way with Dominion. When you look at all these states, why, Kelvin, are we getting all of this pushback from common sense solutions, but it's from our Georgia leadership?
Well, I can speculate. I'm pretty sure I know why we're getting that kind of leadership. I think a lot of it is just they want to cover up their mess. Mm-hmm. I don't think that our elections have been as clean and as perfect as has been sold in the media. If they had been, there wouldn't be hundreds of cases of election issues that the state board has to see.
That's right.
So obviously there's issues with our elections.
What about Fulton County here? What we have going on in Fulton County, a blatant disregard for the law. You have zero input from, very little from leadership right now. But imagine if this were Republicans that were doing this to Democrats. Not only would they have an entire, nationwide media uproar, but everybody and their brother would be coming down on this election board. And the conservatives are the people who try to play by the rules and try to do the right thing regardless. And but what do you?
They'd be burning images in effigy.
Yes.
They'd be marching and blocking traffic in the street. Oh yeah, violence.
Right.
That's what we would see if it was a Republican majority board. Yeah.
I've never met anybody in my entire life who said, I want an election system that will, leave out minorities or hurt an individual or community. I said, we are looking for transparency. I said, I don't care who wins, whatever you put an R or D next to his name. I want to know that it is transparent and it is correct, done right, integral. And he agreed with me.
Yes, sir. Yes,
but
sir.
Here you have
election integrity. Election integrity is not partisan.
Yes, correct.
And that's why we've got to be able to articulate and communicate our real concerns. Mm-hmm. Our concern, we're not trying to go backwards in history. Right. We're not trying to do to have any kind of retrograde activities or
No.
retrograde technologies. What we want though is accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think every Georgian in the state, if you had to choose one, would choose accuracy over fast
Absolutely.
all day long, right?
Well, I mean,
And
yeah,
this-
but we're
and if we
proving we can do
communicate
it.
If we can communicate it that way, I think we'll get more, heads nodding in agreement. I want you to make a conscious decision that I want to participate in our American democratic voting system.
Yes.
I want to do that,
Yes.
not automatically, because when things are automatic, it's kind of like how our Secretary of State sent out absentee ballots to every registered voter in 2020, right?
Yes.
Like it gets out of hand.
Yes.
And when things get out of hand, it's hard to manage, maintain, and focus on what's really a qualified voter and what's an unqualified voter.
Right.
So you get bloated voter rolls.
Yes.
And as we see right now, I mean, they're talking about what 400, almost 500,000 reviews of unqualified voters that they have to determine if they need to be removed from the voter rolls.
And they brag about it too, like, hey, look what we found. It should have never been there in the first place.
Exactly. I'm like, why are we talking about this as if it's a good thing? This is an embarrassment.
It really
We
is.
should have. And this is part of my campaign too. I obviously want to make sure that the irregularities of the voting system is taken care of, but the voter rolls have to be cleaned and maintained and constantly managed.
That's right.
It's not once every 3 or 4 years or whenever you feel like it or whatever incident happens. It's a constant maintenance of it that has to be required.
Yeah, we do. So I want to just touch on a couple more of your what other things. I know election integrity is a huge part of Secretary of State, but are there any other issues you want to touch on, like get out there to the voters? We got a lot of small businesses in Georgia.
Yes.
Anything else you're focused on?
Hey everyone, I just want to take a quick moment to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for all of your support, and thank you because we have hit our initial goal of 500 subscribers. Woo! And I couldn't be more grateful, and I couldn't have done it without you. So now it's time to set a new goal. My new goal is 1,000 subscribers. I know we can do it. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't just watch, participate, become a part of this unafraid, unapologetic, always seeking the truth community. Your support helps us keep the content coming and growing and rocking and rolling. Thank you so much for being with us, and I appreciate each and every one of you.
So I want to just touch on a couple more of your what other things. I know election integrity is a huge part of Secretary of State, but are there any other issues you want to touch on, like get out there to the voters? We got a lot of small businesses in Georgia. Anything else you're focused on?
Yeah, I mean, small business is next to my heart. I'm a small business owner.
Right.
So when it comes to the Secretary of State's role, when it comes to small business, we always hear about Georgia being the #1 state to do business in. But did y'all know that Georgia is in the bottom 4 of red tape, overregulated businesses? I mean, states in Georgia.
True.
Overregulation is a problem here in Georgia, and the Secretary of State's office has a role to play when it comes to that. When it comes to licensing, we can help. We can make the licensing process a little bit more streamlined. We can reduce the requirements of licensing in certain occupations that may or may not be a health risk to our population. When I first registered to run for Secretary of State, I got calls from people in the real estate industry, obviously in the construction industry, the wastewater treatment industry. And they were saying, Kelvin, oh man, I'm so glad you're running because we've got to fix this licensing process. We've got to fix the website, website to go get information.
The website is bad. It's bad. I have to use it every year. Yeah, it's bad.
Right. These are things that are keeping small businesses from thriving or intimidating people from wanting to start their own business. You don't need an attorney to start a business.
Right.
And oftentimes you think you need an attorney for the business formation steps, and you don't. But because it's so complicated or things take so long, you call an attorney for help. I mean, we already use attorneys for too much already. Anyway, that's another conversation. I can
Yeah,
talk about attorneys, boy.
I
But
uh,
anyway,
I
that's
mean,
it.
I tend to think Georgia's, is way more corporate, and I feel like that we need to have leadership that focuses more on communities, small businesses, families.
Yeah,
I personally don't want to see our state being paved over and turned into a parking lot, all in the name of we're making money. I
right.
want common sense decisions, and we got hurt so bad during COVID. Lost so
Yeah.
many small businesses.
Yes.
It's a breath of fresh air to have somebody talking about bringing back that small
Yeah.
business and empowering communities and family. That's what we need in Georgia.
Yep. Yes, sir. Some things that I've been doing, industry roundtables. I'm doing this during my campaign, and several different industries. I wanted them to come together and give me some hard ideas or solutions that I can implement as a state top executive in this Secretary of State seat without having to go through legislature. I want to be able to do things right now for the people.
Right.
Some other things that I'm looking at doing is I want to make sure that the Secretary of State's office partners with like the SBA, the Small Business Administration, in order to do outreach and training
Right.
and anything that's going to encourage people to want to take that leap, because it can be very intimidating.
Right.
To take that leap to try to create their own future wealth or generational wealth. So these are things that the Secretary of State's office can do. In fact, these are things that they should be doing briefly.
Yeah, sounds good.
So Secretary of State's office is also responsible for securities, the enforcement of the Georgia Securities Act. So essentially, I'm going to boil it down to something that's digestible. Basically, we don't want to get swindled, taken, or abused with our money, with our investments. We want to be able to put our money into things that are solid, that are secure, and that we're not going to wake up the next day and all of a sudden all of our money is taken.
Right.
And case in point, we all know about the First Liberty building situation that happened. Very, very unfortunate situation. And, there's different opinions on why that happened. But one thing I do want to mention is that the Secretary of State's office is supposed to provide oversight for those types of licensing.
Right. Agreed.
And guess what, Roy? Their licensing had not been reviewed in over a decade.
Wow. See, yeah, there's a lot
This
of blame
was
to
been
go
caught
around.
years ago.
Absolutely. It should have been. Yeah,
This
if
is
I'm
a
not
problem.
mistaken, they weren't even operating within certain guidelines. They couldn't even call themselves like an there's a lot to unpack there. But again, you're right.
I don't think people realize the power and the importance, the influence that the Secretary of State's office carries. They say it's the third most powerful seat. I would say it's the number 2 most powerful seat in the state of Georgia in terms of being able to make things happen right now for the people. So we need competent, trustworthy, courageous people in this seat that believes in openness and transparency.
Yeah, independent thinkers. We need people that are just filling positions to tie it all together. What we need is independent oversight in each one of these positions, and then they come together.
Yes, sir.
And also out of transparency too. So.
Yep. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Wonderful.
Yes, sir. You got to be straight with people, and you got to be, on the wall of my business, it says, "Do what you say you're gonna do." And the reason why that's on the wall of my business is because it builds trust, and trust is something that's lacking a lot when it comes to our politics. In fact, we make fun of it, and it's almost jokingly that politicians lie. I mean, a politician can be wrong, and oftentimes. People don't want to go into politics because they don't want to, look wrong or be embarrassed. I mean, you can be wrong. You shouldn't be embarrassed by being wrong, but correct yourself.
That's right.
And be straight with the people.
I would just say, in my experience, what I see is even when you want to ask the Secretary of State or Gabe Sterling a question, they will run from you. Whether they're in your county, at your election office, or you're down at the Gold Dome, they literally see you. They are running away. I mean, I have video evidence of this. They won't even take a question.
There's no courage.
I asked you this question at the Walker GOP, but will you uphold to have an open door policy and listen to the people? And it doesn't mean that the people are going to hijack you, but at least do we know that we're going to have an open door, be able to at least get some sort of something on any issue, right? Any issue.
Sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I promise that I will be an open door and I'll answer questions. I want to avoid
that's what
questions.
we need.
It may take me a minute to research and get the right answer, but
Yeah.
it will be answered.
And so
And that much I promise.
we're going to wrap this up here, and I always give my guests the last word. But before I do that, I just want to tell you and kind of reiterate again that I think a lot of us are very excited to see you standing up for this position. It's been such a contested position for
Yes.
years. So
Yes.
many things that go in and out, and just talking to you about the simplest things and the common sense, the logic. It really excites me to know that we could have your type of leadership in there that could really make a difference. So I just want to say thank you for running. We're going to support your campaign, support you on the trail. Janelle should already know that we're she's got a lot of support behind her with what you guys are doing, but I want to give you the last word to the voters out there. What do you want to tell them?
Well, I just want to tell the voters first that this seat is probably the most controversial and consequential seat that's going to come up in 2026, meaning pay attention, do your homework, research every candidate, myself included, obviously, and select the candidate that is best qualified, that has the best message, and that is most trustworthy to fulfill the role of Secretary of State. We feel like our vote isn't going to matter, isn't counted. That's the problem with the Secretary of State's office.
That's right.
The things that I have on my platform in terms of cleaning up the voter rolls, making sure that we empower, train, and process drive our county election offices, making sure that our election processes have no more irregularities, making sure that this Dominion contract is ended and reprocured in a public way, making sure that our small business licensing processes are efficient and trustworthy, and making sure that our securities are overseen in a very transparent way. That is the King candidacy. And I ask that if you believe in those things, that you vote for Kelvin King on May 19th. You can support our candidacy. Go to kelvinking.com. That's KelvinKing.com. Sign up to volunteer. Support us financially, because this seat is extremely important and it directly impacts you.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you heard something that will cause you to support him. I hope he becomes a kitchen table topic for your table. And if you've already made up your mind that you are supporting him and you see exactly what I see in my husband, consider making a donation. You can go to kelvinking.com. That's KelvinKing.com. And you can sign up to volunteer as well as make a donation and just support us overall. But just spread the word. More importantly, please consider voting for him. Until next time, stay unafraid, stay unapologetic, and never stop seeking the truth.